These two Republican members of Congress drew the ire of the Republican National Committee. The RNC censured these two for taking part in the House investigation into the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. Republican Senator Chuck Grassley had said that his party needs to be a big tent party and those who broke laws during that attack should be prosecuted. Now, that attack that happened that day was unprecedented in modern times. Our two longtime political insiders say the censure by the RNC was a mistake, though.
I think it was foolish to do that. In the fall of last year, the Republican candidate for governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, won. He won because 9% of the people that had voted the fall before for Joe Biden switched and voted for a Republican for governor. He won by 2 percentage points. Do you think those people care about censuring Adam Kinzinger or Liz Cheney? I think it was a foolish thing to do. When I was growing up in politics, people used to say to me, it's about addition, it's not about subtraction. And I think the other thing that is, very honest with you, I think is shameful about it is when Donald Trump was writing checks to Hillary Clinton and Chuck Schumer and was a Democrat, which he was for more of his life than a Republican, Liz Cheney was fighting for constitutional principles as a Republican. So come on, it just made no sense to me. I think it was a foolish thing to do, and I think it was shameful.
Jerry, next month DNC will get back together here. Are they going to kill the caucuses being first?
I think it's way too soon to assume that. Very interesting things going on in New Hampshire, which controls, in some respect, Iowa's fate. The Secretary of State in New Hampshire, after 50 years, Bill Gardner, great guy, genuine guy.
And kind of surprised people.
Stepping down. I thought his reason for stepping down was kind of interesting. You know, my two predecessors were carried out of the office. I'd just as soon walk. But his successor has been his chief of staff for 10 years and will carry on in the Gardner tradition. Why does that matter? It matters because the state of New Hampshire has been a zealous guardian of the calendar, making sure they would always be the first primary. And part of that, being the first primary, is they defined, Iowa didn't define, they defined what is a caucus and what is a primary. And he made sure, damn sure, that it looked like a caucus and not like a primary. So now he's replaced. We have the whole situation with the DNC. You know, I think it's presumptuous of people in Washington in particular to be critical of Iowa as not having sufficient diversity. I mean, Iowa is a state that has given a victory to an African American. Iowa is a state that's given victory to a woman, and most recently given a victory to a gay man. I mean, I don't think diversity for diversity's sake. I think diversity for the wisdom you bring to the question in front of you.
But what kind of behind the scenes has to go on here? So now you'll have just had the caucuses for this year, so you'll have a better idea what that state central committee makeup will be as they work these next couple of weeks before that DNC meeting. Do they have to start talking about, should the caucus have a different look, a different feel? Is there a different way to do it? Did we have it on a Saturday and say, you know what do they have to look at?
There are ways.
Partnering with another state?
There are ways, and I've been involved in some of them, to increase participation, which is the key. Increase participation without deviating from a caucus system, and that's what needs to be pursued.
In what way, though?
Well, let me just give you one example that was tossed around last time. You could say to any voter that if they're Democrat, because the Republicans just do a straw poll at the site, but the Democrats could say, you can go to your caucus location on caucus day anytime from noon on and pick up a ballot and say who you're for president and give your proxy to your precinct captain. All of a sudden, you put back in the voter pool people who work in a three-shift situation, nurses, single mothers would have much more access.
Do you forget all about your second choice, third choice, viability, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
Too complicated.
Why
You
not
heard
just
that.
go their way? Just make it simple like theirs. Do more like a straw poll like they do.
That doesn't
And New
That
Hampshire's
doesn't-
not like that in the past, right?
That doesn't give the franchise, though, to people who can't go physically at 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. to the caucus site. This idea would increase voter
I
participation.
guess what I'm saying is, can you do both though here? So the window's open longer where you can go in and put which will
Yeah.
help with that ability, but then get
And
rid
then
of the
go in
funky
and-
15% and all that.
Sure. I mean, I think there are a lot of ways, but one of them isn't to conduct a primary. And the Republicans got closer to a primary with the vote at the caucus site. By the way, kudos to Jeff Kaufman. Didn't think you'd hear me say that today. Kudos to Jeff Kaufman. He's been terrific on this issue. He's tried to be very helpful to the Democrats, and the state working together is one of the keys.
Yeah.
In your gut, are we still first next time around, and are we solo? Are we first on our own?
I think we're first on our own.
Are you an optimist or a realist?
Both, or my wife might say unrealist. But I think Joe Biden is going to have something to say about this as well.
Mike, how do you view this? Because it feels more secure on your side of
It
things,
is.
right?
Yeah. I don't, there's no question that we will remain first in the nation. Interesting that Jerry mentions President Biden. He doesn't really owe Iowa all that much. And I'm not saying that he has anything against
What
Iowa,
about Barack Obama?
but he doesn't.
Can he help here? Will he fight this? Fight for this?
He should, but I
Sorry to
don't.
cut you off.
I don't think
Yeah.
it rises to the level
Of the president.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he could do that behind the scenes.
Well, the current president, could do it with one phone call.
That's true. He could.
Why
Interesting thing about next time around, there will be, even if Donald Trump decides to run again, there will be a competition in Iowa. I don't think there's any question about that. So it'll be interesting.
Who's got the juice on your party right now besides Trump?
I don't know if anybody has as much juice as he does. The question is, who has the courage, if you will, or the gumption to take him on?
Well, after a year, Mike Pence finally spoke out a little bit.
He has. Chris Christie has done that. I just believe.
Pompeo?
Yeah, I just believe there have been other. There will be other people that will run, because I think, as Jerry said, anything can happen in politics.
Speaking of politics, Iowa's most vulnerable Congress member is part of the Quick Six next.